Hey, what's going on YouTube? Nick here with another video to talk about Reacher, the recently new released film starring Alan Ritchson on Amazon Prime. If you haven't watched this season that contains 8 episodes, I do suggest you go check that out first before you get spoiled. So what I want to do and talk about this video here from me is my overall thoughts on the season that we got, what's coming, and how it compares to the two movies that Tom Cruise played in the same role. Now, I do have an article pulled up here from TV Line that basically says it got quickly renewed because of how successful it was. And looking at some of the other ratings based on this season, which I will also show here, it does do a good job at following the adaptation of Lee Child's novels. And that's one of the biggest thing at the time that I can't quite say that this is like a nostalgic thing. But at the same time, for the sake of what we get from a novel adaptation to a film or to a TV show, fans always want to see something very similar, something very close to home of what they've read. And the ratings on these shows and movies are usually higher when the studio or the director, the story writers, the showrunners, they actually follow a script and follow the story that makes sense. And I understand that some things from the books on different sources can be hard to translate and adapt to the film or TV show. But again, it's something that I think from what we're seeing here is overall pretty good. So let me go ahead and change my screen here. Um, so this is pulled up on IMDb. We see the IMDb rating looks about 8.4 to 10. And initially, I was really thinking this show is probably about an 8.5. And I'll say why in just a moment here. But we also look at Rotten Tomatoes here. Even the critics, 88 to 91. And usually, sometimes, we'll see a vast difference on things. But again, if the audience score is high, this is basically a 9.1 out of 10, right? Compared to an 8.8 from critics. It was even a little bit lower than what I thought the show did. So I think within that range, eight to 9, again, getting really digital here with 8.1s or 8.8s, 9.1s. That's fine, and again, I wonder if a lot of people watching this video or have watched the series agree and concur with what the majority of audience scores here have said, right? Based on these meters and IMDb. The interesting thing in contrast, if you look at the other two tabs I have brought up here from the Tom Cruise movies, the first one that came out in 2012, 63 to 67, very similar, very close yet again. And I remember watching this movie, a decade ago and thinking it was okay. It just seemed like another one of Tom Cruise's type movies, like Mission Impossible or something like that. And it was good. And then when he makes another one that comes out 4 years later, not so good. Not so good. It's a bad 38 to 42. Again, very close. It's not like the critics were like a 38 and then this was like a 62. No, 42. This movie was not very good. Not very good at all. And again, let's look at the runtime here. Less than 2 hours long. Let's look at the runtime here. Just over 10 or 2 hours long. So you're looking at about 20-minute difference, but also about 20 to 30-ish difference in rating here. But you look at this show, the show that contains 8 episodes, essentially 8 hours, and you get a much, much, much better higher scoring. Why? Because it follows the novels. Even the first thing right here, the first critic review right here, Reacher captures the trademark bulk of its titular hero while trading away some of his definition, but fans of the novels will find plenty to love about this faithful adaptation. Now, I can't say and agree that I've actually read the novels. I know of them, but I've never read them. And I was a little curious to see how someone like Alan Ritchson was going to do. You know, he was the only places I knew him from was from DC's Titans, who he played Hawk, and then of course I know he did Raphael in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies that Michael Bay did recently. And honestly, I was surprised. I think he did a pretty damn good job in this role, especially just because he is a jacked dude. I mean, he is a large human being. He got super into shape. He was beating dudes' asses left and right whenever he came into like a scenario where it involved fisticuffs, right? The jail scene and when they were in prison for a bit, in the towns, like I mean, just it didn't matter. And again, I think the action was very well done and much more believable for someone of his sort of background of Reacher's background. And I think they did a really good job over the course of the season to go and tell a story about who his brother was, his family, his background, and go into backstories and where they were. And this sort of, I think the backstory part too was well done as it was sort of cut into the 8 episodes from present day to past tense. So I think that's is a great way to tell a story, and that's one of the things I always look for is the plot, the developing, is there good storytelling being done? Is there character development with who he is in the present, based on who he was in the past? The relationships that he interacts with, as we can see here with Willa Fitzgerald, Malcolm Goodwin. Again, like his relationship with Roscoe was very well done. The same thing with Finley. Even some of the, I guess we'll say bad guys, right? Like Kleiner Jr. and Senior, Teal, right? Like, I mean, just overall great casting. I think they nailed that. And if we look at this TV Line article, like I mentioned here, some of the interesting points. Again, why was it so well received? Unique. Yes, I do think that he is a unique character. He's different from these other characters like James Bond or like Tom Cruise's Mission Impossible, right? Like I would even also say same thing with like Jack Ryan, another Jack here. Granted that's Tom Clancy, but it's still different, right? It's a different sort of character, different human being. Sure, there's a military background, of course, but and again, I think based on the literary character and also different on television, I think that's very true. Um, and I think, for the sake of Alan Ritchson doing a good job, I think he was really good in this role, and it might be maybe my favorite role of his acting of his career personally. I think it was okay as Hawk in that series, but I think DC Titans has its own problems. And then the Michael Bay Ninja Turtles movies with him being Raphael, like he's got the attitude to play Raphael, but I think those movies they just had their own issues. And I'm not even going to get into that right now, but um, I think there's a lot of other cool, characters that they introduced here. Again, like deciding on including characters from the books, but different times from the books. Even the reasoning why they did it still makes sense. Canonically from book to film or book to TV series. So I think because we get a good ask and good tell from just from an interview standpoint to the showrunner. It's a really good indication that this season is or series is meant to last or is meant to continue onward. Same thing right here at the end. If we're doing our job properly as writers, we are creating for season 2 new characters that are also interesting in their own way, and the viewers will want to see what those characters do and how they develop, and they'll hopefully fall in love with these characters. That is exactly what needs to happen from a writing standpoint. We need to have connection. We need to be able to find some sort of care about the characters that we see. Why should we like Reacher? Why should we feel for him? Why should we like Roscoe? Why should we like Finley? Right? Like, if these characters aren't, or Neely, right? Like these characters aren't interesting in their own ways, then there's really no point of having them in the show, right? I could go on a completely different rant from other shows that have recently come out within the last couple of years that have tried to do this and have failed, or they've done a piss poor job, and that right there is also an indication of just writers not doing their job, or thinking that we'll just throw a bunch of nostalgia in there and that'll be enough for them, and it's a distraction from actually seeing what good storytelling, seeing what good development is like, seeing what good character development is like. And if you don't fall in love with those characters, then there's really no point. So I appreciate what they've done here with this first season. I am looking forward to season two coming in the near future. I think for the sake of my favorite points maybe in this series or first season, I really did like a lot of the character dynamics between Reacher and Roscoe, Reacher and Finley. I think just they did a pretty good job, like sort of leading you along the way. And of course, I'm trying to figure out as I'm watching, like, who's involved, who's really behind this sort of uh, you know uh, money laundering sweatshop that they've got going on here with Venezuela. And I mean, some of those scenes were really freaking gruesome. I mean, for someone to be castrated, and then this ball is shoved into his stomach while he's being crucified on the wall. I mean, that's some pretty harsh stuff to sort of see. Definitely not for the faint of heart. But again, I think because you're trying to go in this direction of um, yeah, extrapolating the gruesomeness that these people, these criminals, and these just crazy ways to kill some people exist. Reachers just sort of knows because he's seen it. So I think for the sake of um, good scenes that they've been able to create here, I think the other pretty cool shots of the action were well done, like I said before. So, especially when he goes to Hubble's house and turns up the TV, and he's all, camoed out, and he just takes out the four guys, including one of Kleiner's sons, and in the pool. I was like, there's no way this kid or guy who's like nowhere close to Reacher's size is going to take him out in the pool. But you kind of had to let it like lead on a little bit, like maybe he could, take him out to a certain extent, but that didn't end up happening. So, and again, I don't want to say it was predictable, because I wasn't sure if this would end in uh, a positive manner or a lightheartedness, or if there would be something that would cost someone's life. And I think if anyone's life was costed, it was Reacher's brothers, Joe Reacher. Of course, we saw that in the past that their mother passed away from cancer. But yeah, again, overall, I think you found something to care about with them, and again, that's what makes a good show. So, I think that's going to do it with this video here, this review. I'm curious to see what everyone else thinks. I mean, again, just from looking online, it seems that a lot of people did enjoy this as a series, and it's good that we're getting more. I mean, I think Amazon Prime is absolutely killing it right now with great great series, original series, right? Like, I mean, between this coming out, kind of leading the way, I think for 2022, for shows that are kicking off this year. We've got The Boys coming, the much anticipated Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, and I believe we're getting the Wheel of Time season 2 at some point. I could be wrong though. They might hold out next year so that it doesn't compete with um, the Rings of Power. But if we get both, then I'm all for it. So, but leave your comments in the comment section below. I like reading and responding to them, and just kind of having conversations with people. So that'll do it for me again, and I'll see everyone on the next video. Cheers.